Good evening to the regular scheduled meeting of the San Dimas City Council. Pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order dated March 17, 2020, the City Council is authorized to hold public meetings via teleconferencing and to make meetings accessible electronically to all members of the public seeking to observe and to address the legislative body. All Brown Act provisions that require physical presence of the City Council or the public for City Council meetings are waived. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we have some recognitions in the service of doing the Etch and Catch event. I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Mr. Mayor, if you may, I will go to the podium to be able to speak from there. Mr. Mayor, Honorable Council, San Dimas is a community where involvement from the community is an absolute critical and vital piece of who we are. And during the pandemic, when most of us were locked away, city staff actually working, and others locked away at home or working from home, we lost some of that community spirit. But even amongst that, there are opportunities to find that community spirit again. And we have an event that went on here in our parking lot called the Etch and Catch that truly brought together folks for an incredibly good cause. Every week I've read about the crimes in San Dimas and the number of catalytic converters that have been stolen from vehicles. It was the first time I had seen the sheer number of those catalytic converters were being stolen and how prevalent it was, not just across LA County, but then started to stretch across the entire state. Those catalytic converters are very expensive for the materials that are within them, and criminals can get in and out in a very quick manner. And so one of the tools that are used to be able to reduce or be able to at least catch some of these folks that are stealing these catalytic converters is to etch identifying information on the catalytic converters, so when they're stolen and then later found by law enforcement, can be traced back to the victims of those crimes to be able to prosecute. And so with us today, we have 3 organizations that came together to hold an event in our parking lot that allowed us to service in one day about 90 vehicles and etching those identifying information on their catalytic converters. We have Sanders Towing here, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, their explorers and volunteers, and our city staff. And I want to honor them and thank them for the service that they performed and actually name all of them by individuals and hope that they would stand up for recognition by the City Council. With Sanders Towing, Mr. Scott Dilly, the owner, Morgan Kostolowski, the owner, and Chris Dilly, the owner. And if I don't mention your name, please let me know. For the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, Monique Campos, Deputy Hunt, Sergeant Long, that may not be here, Deputy Polanco, Deputy Branks, Reserve Deputy Hartung, who also is a code enforcement officer and parking enforcement officer with the city of San Dimas, Deputy Damian, Detective Richter, our volunteers on patrol, Jerry Hardcastle and Bob Hardcastle, I know you guys are here, Carolyn Kautz, Kent Snyder, Melvin Champion, Cherry Hester. From our explorers, Marissa Ocampo, Adriana Torres, Angelica Northy. Did I get everybody? I think I'm missing one. No, perfect. From our city staff, Lauren Marshall, Stephanie Italia, Kevin Henderson, Isu Ramos, Don Tentler, Jonathan Tentler, Henry No, and Sherry Garwick. These are the folks that make San Dimas great. Putting on events such as this and helping the community at the same time. And so with that, I'd like to honor them for their service.
Thank you.
So we have certificates, and so we'll provide them to the 3 organizations, and they can pass it to these individuals. And once again, thank you so much for taking the time to come down, and you honor this community for the service that you've performed. Standards. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that I attended this function, and I tell you, the people that they were servicing, and they took the time and climbed under their cars and did everything that they needed to do. I don't think there was a person out there that didn't say thanks. They feel slept a little bit easier that night because there's a way to track it. And I want to thank the Sheriff's Department, Sanders Tow, and the city staff for thinking about the community, because this is a problem, and we've now started to find a little way that we can help ourselves and help the community by tracking some of these things and maybe putting some of these bad guys in jail. And maybe getting your catalytic converter back before they have it torn up. So, but thank you very much. Anyone have anything they'd like to say?
Two things. Number one is just for the benefit of the community. I know a couple people had called me and asked and were questioning, what's the big deal about etch and catch? And I just think for the general public, is not to brush over it, that serialized parts are what is needed to be able to find something for law enforcement. And so through this effort, being able to go and put parts that are readily, or a serial number that's readily identifiable for law enforcement is huge in the recovery effort. So I know some people thought, this isn't a proactive approach, but if you really think about it in terms of the context of recovery, it actually is a huge proactive effort. So thank you all so much. And secondly, just as a point of order, Mayor, I think we normally take a photo with you and all of the folks, so I don't know if you'd be willing to do that. But
I'd be more than happy to.
I think
First off, I want to apologize for not wearing a tie, but I will tell you, I brought it. But these hands couldn't get these buttons unloose. I'm sorry. So if you're like, you want to do the whole thing for everything? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's whatever you want. Dennis, you're in charge.
Quite a group of volunteers, isn't it?
yeah.
We'll go along with excuse me. Oral communications. I think prior to oral communications, we have two other National Youth Week, May 1st through May 7th. Secretary, City Clerk will read the proclamation.
Whereas the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks has designated May 1st through the 7th as Youth Week to honor America's junior citizens for their accomplishments and to give fitting recognition of their services to community, state, and nation. And whereas the City of San Dimas will sponsor an observance during that week in tribute to the junior citizens of this community. And whereas no event could be more deserving of our support and participation than one dedicated to those young people who represent the nation's greatest resource and who in the years ahead will assume the responsibility for the advancement of our free society. And whereas our youth needs the guidance, inspiration, and encouragement which we alone can give in order to help develop those qualities of character essential for future leadership and go forth to serve America. And whereas to achieve this worthy objective, we should demonstrate our partnership with youth, our understanding of their hopes and aspirations, and a sincere willingness to help prepare them in every way for the responsibilities and opportunities of citizenship. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Emmett G. Badar, Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Bertone, Council Members John Ebner, Ryan A. Viana, and Eric Weber hereby proclaim the first week in May as Youth Week. In witness thereof, I, Mayor Emmett G. Badar, have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of San Dimas to be affixed this 27th day of April.
Thank you. This next proclamation is very important. There's a person in our community and in every other community that actually makes the City Hall run. It's that person, in our case, Deborah Black, our city clerk, and this is meant for her and all her colleagues all over the country. 52nd Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week. Whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks provides for professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and the agencies of government at other levels, and whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality, their impartiality, rendering equal service to all, whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center of functions of local government and community, whereas professional municipal clerks continuously strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks throughout participation in educational programs, seminars, workshops, and annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, or international professional organization. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks. Therefore, I, Mayor Emmett Badar, Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Bertone, Council Members John Ebner, Ryan A. Viana, and Eric Weber, Hereby recognize the week of May 2nd through May 8th, 2021 as professional municipal clerks. The further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerk, Deborah Black, and to all professional municipal clerks for their vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. In witness thereof, I, Emmett Badar, have set my hand and caused the seal of the city of San Dimas to be affixed this 27th day of April 21. Deborah, we mean it. Our gratitude is there. Sometimes we forget to say thank you, but I will say thank you for all the times I've forgotten over the years. But thank you very, very much for what you do. And
Mr. Mayor, if I could say something, it's not only is she a true professional, but she makes this place a lot more pleasant with her attitude and her ability to make people feel at home. So I want to thank her for everything she does for me, which is an awful lot. I really appreciate it, and you make my job a lot easier, so thank you very much.
And I'll add my compliments in the same vein. Deborah's been here at City Hall for basically as long as I can remember, and she's really a steadfast person that we can go to for so many things, and I really appreciate everything you do, Deborah.
anybody else?
Thanks, Deborah. You really do deserve more thanks than a proclamation can give, but I think that's what the least we could do. Thank you.
I normally say thank you every time I see you, so I'm just going to say it again. Thank you. I'm very grateful for all you do for the city and for the citizens that come in here. Some of the things that maybe council doesn't see, but I know you deal with. And so thank you so much. And I'm just very happy to have you here and part of our team, Deborah.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd also like to recognize my assistant, Leslie Munoz, who is making my job a whole lot easier by being here. And now that she's full-time, it will be that much easier. So she is being introduced into the clerk's world and is being trained to pick up the baton. So thank you, Leslie.
Leslie, thank you very much on behalf of the City Council. Okay. We'll go to oral communications. Members of the audience are invited to address the City Council on any item on this agenda or not on this agenda. Public comment will not be taken during each individual item except for public hearings. Comments on public hearings items will be heard when that item is scheduled for discussion. Under the provisions of the Brown Act, the legislative body is prohibited from engaging in discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. However, your concerns may be referred to staff and set for discussions at a later. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. This will be the only oral communication period with the exception of public hearings. Here are the directions for public comment. There will be 3 options for members of the public to participate during oral communications. There will be 1 oral communication period at the beginning of this meeting. For public to comment on any matter on or off of the agenda. Each speaker will have 1 3-minute opportunity to make their comments. At the 2-minute mark, staff will announce 1 minute remains. Public comments will not be taken during each individual agenda item except for that of a public hearing. Will be taken separately for the public hearing item. Public comments may be taken in the following order. Written comments received by email before 4 p.m. will be provided to council, posted on the website, acknowledged by name, topic, and added to the permanent record. In-person participants, current order provides that only 15 are allowed in the room. Council members, staff, and members of the public will not exceed 15 persons required in the council chambers. A speaker card will be required to facilitate and track the number of participants in the council chambers. If you do not wish to list your name, you may identify as speaker 1 or your number in the queue. The cards will then be presented to the city clerk, who will call each speaker to the podium in the order the cards are submitted. Once 3 minutes has expired, the speakers must exit the chambers using the double doors to the right of the podium and exit City Hall. Staff will be in the lobby monitoring the number of attendees and ushering the speakers into the chambers when space permits. Phone participants may call 909-394-6206 before the closure of the public comment period. Public comments may also be submitted by logging onto the meeting through the Zoom meeting link provided in the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any written comments?
Mayor, City Clerk's office received one email sent in today by Betty Jean Lamb. The topic was transparency in council presentations, reason the proposed SP 11 PLA grading change and grading. It sounds like there's several topics. The proposed SP 11, the PLA 1, and the grading and change for the council meeting procedures. That is the only written public comment received.
And it will be posted in the permanent record.
Yes, it is on the website, and it will be made part of the permanent record.
Do we have any in-person speakers?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, Captain Ashrafni at San Dimas Sheriff Station. I brought a couple of guests with me here today, a couple of new team members added to the San Dimas Sheriff Station. I wanted to bring them by so the council, staff, and the community members that are watching this broadcast could know who they are, because I think it's very vital for the community to know their deputy sheriffs and the folks that provide law enforcement for the community. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce some of my folks that came to San Dimas Station within the last month. First, if you guys could, when I call your name, come up so the community can see you. First is Sergeant Jesse Polanco. He transferred in about 2 weeks ago from Century Station. Then we got Sergeant Sergio Reyes, also transferred in from Century Station. And then last council, you guys approved a motor deputy, and he's here also. His name is Luis Rojas, and he came in from Temple Station. So we have a lot of tenure here combined. We have over 75 years of experience in law enforcement. I'm very happy to have him here and be part of our team. Thank you.
Sure. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Appreciate it. I'm sure they're ready to go to work. Okay. Do we have any speakers on the phone? Okay.
Thank you for calling. Please state your name for the record, and your 3 minutes starts now.
Betty Jean Lamb, calling regarding lack of transparency in SP 11 PLA 1 grading change presentations. I hope that we are not actually a tale of two HOAs, but are in this together with common interests, moved to Villa Verde because of the awesome, extensive common areas that enhance our lives and property values, and that not one of us is any better because of the size of their home, run a contracting business, work as a rocket scientist, or a scientist working on a cure for cancer. I hope we all care about what happens here and cherish our open spaces as priceless to preserve for ourselves and future generations to enjoy. Once gone, they're gone. Other than correcting and oversight to update the municipal code when the DPRB changed its grading policy and thus approved projects for years in violation of the municipal code, was there really an increased grading limit needed when an application was recently submitted for approval, or was codification of that policy the only change required? After watching hours of meeting videos, reading the staff report, and studying the tables about the issue, it is apparent to me that Councilman Viana and Weber and Assistant Planner Ken are all in the loop on the specifics, but to me, it is as clear as mud. The photo in Exhibit D, page 15, is unlabeled and shows two different backyards. So the 500 cubic yards Ryan and Ken said won't significantly impact the viewscape from below goes where? What's the big secret? It is truly puzzling. Staff's report stated they thought about 668 cubic yards would be enough to complete 1533. Since I am in the dark about the specifics for Christina, I cannot know if I support it or not. Generically, I think 1,000 cubic yards is way too much when it isn't needed. It is 1,000 cubic yards, so each property owner in PLA 1 can have a huge 30-foot deep flat yard for their dog or a basketball court per item 4A, page 8, table 2, in staff's report showing only 700 cubic yards is needed for that, except for one that needs 1,000. Jan Bartolo said in a previous meeting, where did the 1,000 cubic yards come from? Did Mr. Viana pull that number out of a hat? Perhaps Mr. Viana or Mr. Weber would enlighten the voting public by putting the pieces of the puzzle together to clarify so the public can provide informed, appropriate input at the DPRB and Planning Commission hearings. Also, can Council work with Catherine Barger to prevent a repeat performance of Stone Soul Picnic and Music Fest at the Covina Hills Ranch Estates event venue in our nice, quiet residential neighborhood? Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you for calling. Please state your name for the record, and your 3 minutes starts now.
Hello, my name is Marcellus Well, and I just want to tell everybody thank you for their service to our community, and especially Deborah, because she's always so kind when I come in there to the City Hall to speak to mayors or anyone of that. You know, she's just a great person. And thank you for your community service, Deborah, and I appreciate you a lot. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, ma'am. Next.
There's no more at this time, but if we can get a 1 minute wait for our TV delay.
Okay, we'll wait 1 minute. That was about one long minute.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any speakers on Zoom?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We are now taking oral communication for those who are joining us through Zoom. If you wish to take part in oral communications and are joining us by Zoom, by internet device, please locate the Zoom raise hand feature and click on the hand icon. For those who dialed into Zoom, press *9 on your phone now to raise the hand feature in Zoom. You will be identified by your screen name for the internet device and the last 4 digits of caller ID for dialed-in participants. Participants will be called upon one at a time in the order the hand was raised. When called upon, please unmute. To unmute from an internet device, click the microphone button at the bottom. From a phone, press *6. Our first participant is Steve G. It is your turn to speak. Please unmute your microphone, state your name for the record, and your 3 minutes starts now.
Steve Giles. And do you hear any echo or anything? Are we good?
You are good. We hear you loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Council members, mayor, and staff, thank you for your service to our city. My name is Steve Giles. I have served the community of San Dimas as a teacher at Lone Hill Middle School for the past 22 years, and all of my children have attended and are still attending San Dimas schools. As a member of the community and someone who cares deeply about the people of San Dimas, I am here tonight to speak about something that is very close to my heart, the George Floyd resolution that was passed last June. My passion for this resolution didn't come just from seeing the protests happening across our country or on our own local streets. It came from my actual experiences seeing outright racist behavior in our city. I'd like to make a recommendation to review and change the language of the resolution.
2 years, and all
Now
of
I'm
my
hearing.
children have attended and are still attending San Dimas schools.
There's feedback. We got it? Okay. I'd like to make a recommendation to review and change the language of the resolution in light of the recent murder conviction of Derek Chauvin. When we approached the city to honor George Floyd with a resolution and denounce racism in the city of San Dimas, there was a discussion about the language used in the final resolution that today does not reflect the facts of the case. George Floyd was murdered. It was an issue of racism and hate. It was an issue of police abuse. To prevent our city from ever going near this path, we need to be proactive, and I believe revising this resolution is one way to help in that process. We had previously discussed other ways of dealing with this in our community, but up until now, I have seen no actions other than the passing of the resolution. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Giles. Next.
Next participant is Sean C. It is your turn to speak. Please unmute your microphone, state your name for the record, and your 3 minutes starts now.
Good evening, City Council and members of the audience. SB 9 and SB 10 have passed the Committee on Governance and Finance and are heading to the Committee on Appropriations. SB 9 passed with a 5-0 vote. Senators Durazo, Hertzberg, McGuire, and Weiner unanimously voted in favor. SB 10 passed with a 4-1 vote. Senators Durazo, McGuire, Nielsen, and Weiner voting in favor, and Senator Hertzberg voting against. SB 9, as mentioned before, has been amended, but it is still a terrible bill, as is SB 10. No update on Senator Portantino's SB 15, but hopefully this passes through the committees. This is one of the good bills written by our Senator Anthony J. Portantino. This gives cities grants for 7 years if they voluntarily rezone idle big box buildings for affordable and workforce housing. This repays cities for lost retail taxes, doesn't pave over or invade existing neighborhoods. It also doesn't target small mom and pop businesses. There will be a hearing on bad bills such as SB 6, SB 8, and SB 478 this Thursday, April 29th at 10 a.m. If you are interested on the updates of the housing bills coming through Sacramento, visit livablecalifornia.org. Councilman Ebner and myself are part of this organization, and we would like the community to join us in this fight for actual solutions to solving the homelessness and affordable housing crisis. And finally, I would like to congratulate the Armenian community in their resilience and fight in pushing the United States government in formally recognizing the Armenian genocide. It's been a long time coming. This is very unfortunate, to say the least, and not recognizing the Armenian genocide was to keep good relations with Turkey. If we lose good relations with Turkey because of this recognition, then so be it. As the saying goes, nothing of value will be lost, seeing how the current administration under Sultan Erdogan has ambitions to create a neo-Ottoman empire in its ventures in Libya and northern Syria, as well as causing instability in Europe with the refugee crisis that has transpired with regards to the EU's consideration of whether or not Turkey should be considered a European country. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next. Pardon me?
Participant Amanda L., it is your turn to speak. Please unmute your microphone, state your name for the record, and your 3 minutes starts now.
Hi, my name's Amanda. I would first like to start off by thanking the city manager, Chris Constantine, as well as Captain Ash and Officer Long for taking some time out of their day to have a discussion with me outside of City Hall in regards to possibly doing a town hall for addressing the community issue of those that are experiencing homelessness here within our community. I do know that Captain Ash was in favor of, presenting some of that education for the community so that we all can be aware of what is available as a resource, not only to us as residents, but also for helping those that are within need. I also wanted to thank the, the Urban Graffiti Enterprise Inc. that San Dimas actually contracts with. There has kind of been a bit of graffiti popping up everywhere, and they have been working tirelessly to get that under control, including here in Old Town. They were able to do it within 24 hours of me calling. I do believe they're also working on the Lone Hill stop as well. That is cropping up all over, which is crazy. I would also like to encourage anybody that is willing to donate blood. There is a blood donation by Red Cross tomorrow in front of Crunch Gym. I believe you need to register, but the city just posted another blood drive in May. So if you are able to donate, I highly encourage everyone to go ahead and do that. So lastly, I'll end this with, I hope everybody is enjoying the nice, cool and warm spring weather, and have a great week, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
If there are other Zoom participants who wish to speak, please raise your hand feature now. Mayor, we no longer have any. We do not have any more Zoom.
We'll give it about a minute.
A minute. Okay.
Yeah, just assert. Just one explanation, just for public knowledge.
Thank you. Consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless a member of the City Council requests a separate discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to ask staff to give a little explanation of item 4E, which is about the CERT program and how the city is officially participating in that now. I think the public it would be good knowledge for the public's awareness.
Can we go ahead and give that account and then ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Ebner. The city had a group of volunteers that established the CERT program. It started off as discussions with the Public Safety Commission, with presentation done by Councilmember Viena and two others about the value of CERT and CERT programs, not just across the state, but across the state of California. CERT, a community emergency response team, brings together a group of interested individuals to be trained and coordinated in the use in emergencies. In the state of California, a formally recognized program such as what is before you today, would extend the status of disaster services workers to eligible qualified individuals. And by receiving that designation, those volunteers, when operating either in a pre-sanctioned training or an official emergency event, would receive state workers' compensation benefits, where normally a normal volunteer, should they be working for the city and is injured, would then fall to the city's workers' comp. And so when I first came to here, I had come from a city with lots of disasters, and clearly emergency preparation and operations was an area that city was not where it should have been. And so I was evaluating what our capacity was. I was looking at our emergency operations plan, our safety element, which has a requirement in there, a policy with regards to a volunteer program such as this, and seeing that we're woefully behind should a disaster strike. And finding residents and community members and training them up with the skill sets necessary to be viable, successful additions to our public safety infrastructure in an emergency is a pretty long runway to receive that training. And so establishing this formally, bringing it under the city's auspices, putting a little bit of money behind for some of the capital expenditures that they need, and extending the protections of disaster services workers would allow this to thrive. The current membership will still remain. The current participants are still there. All our emergency functions will operate under our volunteer coordinator for the city, which is Mr. Larry Giannoni.
Thank you, Chris. And you did mention Ryan, and of course Larry, but Ryan was instrumental in getting this started off the ground. So it's nice to see the city putting resources behind it and really, hopefully, helping it be solid.
We'll make it successful.
Thanks, John. I will only point out, I was a commissioner when this started on the Public Safety Commission, and working with the mayor, who was the liaison at that particular time. I do appreciate your commitment to this and your commitment to emergency services response from the city. I think COVID-19 demonstrated the importance of the CERT program and people being able to take care of themselves when others can't, and when first responders and the EMS system is overwhelmed with some sort of disaster and priority. And we saw that during one of the fires where our CERT team was called. So thank you for what you're doing with this and with the community. It's going to make people more resilient and be able to help their neighbors, and that's what it's all about. With that, if there's no comments, I would move approval of the consent calendar, Mayor. Second. Thank you.
All in favor?
Mayor, we do have one ordinance on the consent calendar that the title needs to be read by the city clerk, and then the motion needs to waive further reading and adopt.
Thank you, and I'll waive further reading and adopt once it's been read.
That ordinance 1286?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Ordinance 1286, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Dimas, County of Los Angeles, California, amending San Dimas Municipal Code Chapter 3.30.040, list of contractors, and Chapter 3.30.050, informal bidding procedures.
Move to waive further reading and adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Consent calendar passes 5-0. Ryan touched on the CERT thing when he said that our CERT team responded to a request by Area D and other units that protect us. Everybody was in a COVID-19 reality, but when they were called, they responded, and I think that's commendable for a small group of folks who have really put forth an effort. And so what we're trying to do is reorganize it, get it going in a very positive action. And this will be the first time that the city's actually put some expenses into it, some money. And I think that's going to make a difference. So what I would recommend, that I'm not exactly sure who they should notify or contact the city to get a name if you're interested in volunteering and getting off to, it does require some training, but we have some good trainers, the fire department, the current staff of the CERT program. They'll get you trained, and believe me, in today's age, we will use you. So it's not going to be one of those things that, you just go to a class and you say, well, hell, I've been there forever, but you're actually going to get used. So I highly recommend it, and thank you for your willingness to volunteer. Okay, other business. Initiation of a municipal code text amendment to amend, update, and delete and/or modify chapters 17.12, 18.08, 18.12, 18.20, 18.24, SF 18.35, SFDR 18.188, 18.196, 18.200, 18.204, 18.208, 18.212, to provide clarity to avoid multiple interpretations, eliminate unnecessary or duplicative regulations, update the code provisions to comply with current state law, and streamline the review and processing of land use, zoning, and planning applications. Mr. City Manager, make some sense of what we just said.
Thank you very much. If you've gone through the code, which I'm sure every single person has gone through every page in the code, you will realize that it's hundreds of pages for the entire municipal code. And when you look at the zoning and development code, it's hundreds of pages alone. And so there's a tremendous amount of complexity, a lot that goes into it, a lot of changes that occurs over time. And so coalescing it and clarifying, removing inconsistencies, making it easier to implement, eliminating unnecessary duplication is really necessary to streamline our development process. And so I take my hat off and compliment the Community Development Director, Henry No, his staff, Ken Fichtelman and Ann Nguyen, and the rest of the staff that are really taking a hard look at these to clean them up so that we can accomplish what most residents want when they're dealing with the city, is an easier development process. And so the item before you is a request to initiate changes. It is not changing any code. And so there's no code. These are the code sections that are being looked at, not that we're changing it. That will come back to you at a future meeting. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ken Fichtelman, our Assistant Planner.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm here on behalf of myself and Nguyen, the Associate Planner, to present this initiation to you. Oops, we don't have the PowerPoint? Okay. We can do this without a PowerPoint, not an issue. So from your staff report and your reading, Mayor, you can understand, I think, what our problem is. We had all the requests that we have all those chapters that many of them are redundant, many of them are now obsolete. Many of them contain policies and procedures which staff has used but have never been codified. And some of them are just redundant upon themselves. So we are looking to, we've been auditing the code, we've been looking to make it more functional, easier to navigate for both residents and developers. We want to improve the understanding of residents, so when they look at a code, they know that the code is what it is, that there are no policies and procedures that staff is following that may be contradictory or add elements of complexity to the code. That makes it easier for developers and staff, that we and developers know coming in what is expected of a project. And it also avoids multiple interpretations, which is important for code enforcement as well as staff. So at this time, we've identified the chapters before you for changes. We're basically, to simplify this, we're not going to bring them all at once. We're looking to amend the chapters in 3 separate actions. Related sections will be combined into each action, and each action will be taken for recommendation by the Planning Commission before being brought back to council. Our first action, or one of the three actions, would deal with residential zones. We'd be taking a look at the 4 chapters plus any others that changing one chapter can cascade into other chapters. So the 4 chapters would be the main chapters we'd look at, but there would be changes throughout the code because of the ripple effect of changing a single line that can create. And so we have basically a 3-pronged approach for the residential sections. We want to codify established policies and procedures. We want to eliminate ambiguity, and we want to clarify language so that staff, developers, residents can read the code and understand it in easier terms. For our second action, we're looking to bring the chapters that deal with administrative and discretionary actions. And we were currently looking to take those 6 chapters and turn them into 3. We would lay out clear processes for the development of any project. And what this will do is it will make any developer coming in, any resident coming in, they will be able to clearly understand the policies and procedures that the city and staff will be using. It'll lay out a clear direction of what is expected of them to get their project passed. And it will amend the procedural processes to make them easier, quicker, and just more acceptable for staff and developers. And the third action we're proposing is basically cleanup. We've got our definitions chapter, which has never been updated as far as I can tell. It still lays out a definition for hog ranch. And we also have the explosives chapter, which due to ATF laws and regulations is just redundant at this point and is clearly usurped by federal regulations. So at this time, staff recommends that the City Council grant the municipal code text amendments and initiation for the chapters that were previously read, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
So the attachments, those are all the current codes?
Those are all the chapters that we will be changing.
Okay, sounds good. Hog Ranch, wasn't that a commune up in the hills at one time? I can't remember. Just kidding.
Okay, any further questions?
No.
I'll just comment that I'm appreciative of the time it's taken for you guys to look and review each one of these sections. I think cleaning up, to your point, vague and ambiguous sections is a benefit to staff. I think it's a benefit to the community and anyone that wants to engage the city. So I'm grateful for the time you guys have spent doing that, and I think it will lend itself to some more efficiency and less confusion. And so thank you for that.
Thank you. Ken, I just want to say something, and I do appreciate the staff, Henry, and your group for going through this. Time is important. It's only taken 30 years for us to get to today. 30 years. I was a planning commissioner for X amount of years, been on the council, been asking for this for 30 years. And I certainly appreciate the fact that you guys have now recognized, and I realize it's a whole new staff. But I know that I can speak for myself, and I almost believe I'm probably speaking for our retired Mayor Morris, who continuously tried to get this to this day. And I think that's commendable, and I thank you. Okay.
I would move then to pursue staff's recommendation to initiate, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is to initiate municipal code text amendments on the sections listed in the staff report.
Right. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, approval of a memorandum of agreement between the City of San Dimas and the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments for the San Gabriel Valley Regional Vehicle Miles Traveled VMT Mitigation Fee Structure Program. Staff?
Good evening, Council and staff members and members of the public. Tonight in front of you for Council is the consideration to approve a Memorandum of Understanding for the city of San Dimas to participate in the city and the San Gabriel Valley Regional Vehicle Miles Travel Mitigation for Fee Structure Program that primarily would accomplish two things. First, it will prepare a nexus in which the city can collect a fee to offset impacts related to vehicle miles travel, which is the new metric to evaluate transportation impacts. With that, what it will do is those impacts that cannot be mitigated because of larger projects, and it would allow for the greenhouse gas emissions and those impacts to be mitigated somewhere else, either somewhere else in the city or outside the city's boundaries. And secondly, it will reduce the cost of preparing a nexus study because it will be done in conjunction with other 27 cities. So they will be running the program, and it will meet the goals of the state, which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So with that, staff recommends that the City Council approves the MOA to participate in this study. Any questions? I'll be more than happy to answer.
Questions?
Thank you for the report, Fabiola.
You're welcome.
For technical assistance, I'm assuming.
Yeah, basically what it is right now, if you recall, we adopted thresholds, and we also have a web tool that we can use for certain projects, smaller projects, to kind of figure out what mitigations can be done to reduce those impacts. This one takes it to a higher level. It's for those larger projects where you cannot avoid the traffic or the impacts. There's no way, but this allows you to transfer some of those mitigations somewhere else and still accomplish the state overall goals, which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So it is very technical, I agree with you, and it will put the city in a better place in order to approve and consider those projects without having to adopt what is called an overriding statement of considerations under CEQA.
Thank you.
I appreciate your putting this all in layman's terms, because I remember when we got the first presentation on this, my eyes were about crossed by the time we finished because it was so hard to understand what it was we were looking at. So it's certainly appreciated that we're able to get it down to layman's terms.
You're welcome.
Thank you once again.
I would move approval.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Select replacement light poles for City Hall Civic Center. Staff?
Evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. We don't have a PowerPoint. I believe John Lee is pulling up the PowerPoint. It'd be much better with a PowerPoint.
Nope. Okay.
Tonight, staff is requesting direction on replacement of the wooden street lights on the southeast and north side of Civic Center. The existing wooden street light poles are over 30 years old and have reached the end of their service life. The project for the replacement is actually being proposed as part of next year's budget, but staff is requesting your direction on what types of lights you would want to replace the wooden poles with. So to the left is actually the wooden poles that are being replaced. It's also on page, a better picture is on page 5C, page 2 of the staff report. And the wooden poles are on the upper left of that. So existing in the town core are several different types of lights, and what we try to do is put the existing lights on a aerial so you can see the different types of lights that are existing in the downtown. But primarily there are two types that our staff feels are it would make good candidates for replacement. One is the Copenhagen, the steel Copenhagen lights, which are on the far right of the presentation up there. Those are line Bonita from San Dimas Avenue all the way to the 57 freeway. There are also some of them are on San Dimas Avenue, south of Bonita to Commercial. That's one of the lights that can be replaced, or replacement lights. Another one that's in the town core is the Nostalgia Series street lights. That's the second one from the right on the screen there. So and then the fourth light that's up there is actually, it's a red pole light, and that's an existing street light that actually needs to be replaced as well. So it's a little bit more of a complicated project, and we'll be presenting that at a future time for designing the replacement of those lights. So if you go to the next slide. So on the screen before you is the existing lights that are in the downtown. And right now in the orange kind of dashed line on the far right is where the wooden street light poles exist currently. So you can see they're south, east, and the northeast side of the Civic Center. Primarily, there's Nostalgia Series lights, or they're scheduled to be Nostalgia Series lights within the side streets of the downtown. Those are the lights that were just placed around the Civic Center Park as part of the sidewalk project.
And which light is that?
That's the Nostalgia Series lights.
Okay.
It's if you look on page 5, item 5C, page 2.
Yeah.
Those are the ones on the bottom left. Okay. So really what we'd like to get from you is your direction on what you'd like to see in the downtown as a replacement for these wooden lights.
But these wooden lights are located around City Hall and Civic Center, right?
Yes, yes. So they're on the south side, east and northeast side. And then I wanted to just kind of bring up, there's also red pole lights that will need to be replaced. They're shown in the red dotted lines. So those are also candidates to be replaced and will need to be replaced eventually.
How many are those?
11. So as part of an option, what we'd like to get from you is your vision for what Bonita Avenue is. What we would propose is to have the Copenhagen lights on Bonita Avenue from Walnut all the way, so you extend the downtown. And then on Walnut itself, we're suggesting an alternative one to put the Nostalgia Series lights. That would be more consistent with what we have. That way you'd have Nostalgia Series on the west side, north side, and east side of Civic Center Park, Civic Center and Civic Center Park. And you'd have the Copenhagen lights lining Bonita Avenue. So you'd have two different types of lights around the Civic Center. You'd have the Nostalgia Series, and then just on the south side, you'd have the Copenhagen lights. And on the Copenhagen lights, what we'd like to get from you, if you do want Copenhagen lights on Bonita Avenue, is our recommendation would be to have continue with the aperture for the decorations, so that if we put flags up during the year and Christmas lights, we can continue that theme down Bonita to Walnut with the Copenhagen lights. Can't do that with the Nostalgia Series at this time.
Sure, I had a question about who owns the lights. The Nostalgia lights that are on the numbered streets, primarily west of San Dimas Avenue. There might be a couple on like 2nd Street, another street that's on the east side. Those, I believe, are provided and owned, I think they're owned by Edison, right?
That is correct. They are owned by Edison. The city did do the projects and paid for it, and the lights were turned over for Edison for maintenance.
Okay, and these, I know the Copenhagen lights downtown and the ones we have around City Hall are owned by the city, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they are.
Okay, the new lights that are on the west side of Civic Center Park, I believe those are owned by the city as well.
Yes, they are.
So what I'm looking at here in any map you want to look at, but an alternative one might be a good one, is that what we have around Civic Center Park, let's just take 2nd Street, for example. So 2nd Street from San Dimas Avenue going east, we have the nostalgic lights basically all the way to that driveway where you go into the library.
Yes.
So because that was part of the Civic Center project.
Yes.
So for at least those 2 lights on the top of the drawing there on 2nd Street, it seems that those should be nostalgic for sure. Additionally, what I'm looking at here is that we do have, the Copenhagen lights within the City Hall complex. However, looking again at alternative 1, having them on Walnut and Iglesia seemed to make sense in that, those streets going north, it seems like the vision has been anyway that those streets would have the nostalgic lights.
Okay.
In fact, even over on Cataract, which is not shown on this map, there is a nostalgic light, I think 1, there may be 2, that are on Cataract north of Bonita. And in the Walker House, there's a nostalgic light, 1 or 2, on the Walker House property, or right in front of Walker House. So it seems that alternative 1 kind of goes along with that vision of having those north-south streets have the nostalgic down to Bonita, unless there's some we replaced recently, like over by the hardware store, which are so new we're not replacing them right now.
Mm-hmm. That is what our recommendation would be, alternative 1, if you wanted to consider that. But it's really a pleasure of the council on what you see, envision as a downtown. But I do want to make sure that if you do have Copenhagen lights on Bonita, there is a cost differential. So if you do want the aperture and it would be a electric light socket up on the top part so that we can have the lighted decorative elements added for Christmas and other holidays. We need to order those poles specially to make sure that they have that.
And each one of those poles would be set up for electricity at the top?
At the top, yes.
What about at the base, if any?
If you want them at the base, we can order it at the base.
I'm just asking. We do events with car shows and stuff like that, and they're constantly looking for access to electricity. But I'm not locked into that. I'm just asking.
We can do that. We would probably end up having to provide an additional circuit, which we can do. We would just need to do some design on that, and we can do that.
That's a good idea for the ones on Bonita.
Okay.
I would say.
I'm supportive of the Copenhagen lights on Bonita. That's easy. Something that was brought to my attention not too long ago, though, is from some seniors in the community, is that the nostalgia lights, for some that have cataracts and what have you, they see starburst, like that's how they describe it. Mm-hmm. They see the glow at night when they're trying to drive. They don't describe that same thing with the Copenhagen lights. It seems to be reduced because of the way that light is. Okay. So for that reason, I'm not a fan of the Copenhagen lights on the major thoroughfares or highly traveled streets. I'm not opposed to them on the residential streets. The nostalgic lights, yeah, that's correct. So to me, my preference, I like alternative 2. However, I agree with John with regards to the nostalgic lights, and I almost wonder if in a version alternative 2.5, if I don't know that it looks good to have the nostalgic lights like an alternative 1 switch from nostalgic on the northeast corner or northwest corner rather of Walnut and Bonita. If rather you went to alternative 2 and you went right to the end of the Civic Center, or not Civic Center, but City Hall, the Plumber Building, that last light, and then converted those last 3 to the nostalgic, which would then interface with the rest of Walnut and that residential community. Just in terms of the optics of it, if you're driving from that corner, it would lack consistency. But other than that, I prefer option or alternative 2 with those changes as it relates to those lights. I wouldn't mind Copenhagen all the way up Walnut, but I also understand the idea of the residential neighborhoods interfacing with that. I also have started to see those glows around the nostalgic lights for whatever vision reasons, and I didn't notice it until somebody elderly said it to me, and then I started driving and I started noticing it more. So it's I can find that to be an annoyance at times if you're driving late.
Do you see that on the new LEDs as well? The LEDs, the Nostalgia series that were installed around Civic Center Park are the LEDs.
What are the ones in front of the Walker House? Are those LED?
I do not know. They're not.
Okay, those ones are really bad in terms of how they view.
Yeah, we are going to switch those out to LEDs. I'm not sure. I didn't look in the budget enough to see if this is on this year's program or not, but you might remember that we were going to do 3rd and 4th Street, a block down at the end, and one was going to be the 4,000K with 3,000K to see what they look like, but they were both going to be LEDs. Those are new lights, but that might be something to think about. The LEDs may not have that same effect.
Yeah, the temperature, though, I think on those lights is different than the ones we have in front of the Walker House, and the look of them are in terms of just how they feel. I actually like the temperature of the light in front. I know we had that discussion too, but the temperature of the lights in front of the Walker House I think are great. But the ones that are here just seem bright. They emit a lot of light.
And right, I mean, we talked about those studies and everything, and that's why I prefer the 3,000, because you can't get 2,700, which is basically the old temperature of what you're talking about, but that is the temperature that you're seeing the circle on too. But it may be that I can't tell what.
Bring in the optometrist.
If you're just looking at how they look, the nostalgic lights are my favorite. The marble light nostalgia I think is very appropriate.
They look good around the Civic Center Park. There was a reason why we put them there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have no problem. I'm perfectly comfortable with alternative 2, but I also understand what Ryan's asking about, and John is if we could follow up on the LEDs, that would be good, because that's where we've been going. So I can't imagine they can't do them with LEDs.
The new ones are definitely going to be LEDs, and actually the new Nostalgia series that were installed around the park are 3,000K. So those are the I guess,
a little
the more
bit
yellow.
warmer. Yeah.
So the lights in the downtown, the Copenhagen's in the downtown, are actually 4,000K LEDs. So to look at the different temperatures, and part of the project you mentioned, 3rd and 4th Street, is on this next fiscal year's budget, and one of the things we'll come back to council is whether they want to try the 3,000, 4,000 to look at the difference between the fixtures. So I mean, we'll bring that back to you.
That'll be interesting. It was quite a discussion before.
And that's just the color temperature. So the wattage is a totally different subject.
Yes.
I mean, you can do the lower color temperature and whatever wattage you need to light things up, but not be a glare to you.
Yes.
So that's a discussion. But I think option 1 is the better of the 2 options. I'd like to see about the halo effect that you're talking about, but I think option 1 is better.
Okay, so I make sure I'm understanding. So on Iglesias Street, you wanted Copenhagen's or you wanted Nostalgia series?
I'm saying nostalgic, just like an alternative 1 for all the space. Alternative 1 is what I'm.
Okay, and then okay. So I have 2 recommendations. I have a 1 and a 2.
I'm at 2.
Okay.
I like option one, but I had never heard of the concerns about blinding people while they're driving, which is a real concern. So I would be interested in seeing if those LEDs kind of alleviate that problem.
Okay.
So is this something that you need a motion today to move forward, or can we do some kind of a test thing?
Let me bring something back. I do need to get these replaced, but we want to make sure we replace them with the right fixture that you want.
Well, maybe, it sounds like we can all agree on Copenhagen on Bonita. Is that?
Oh, yeah.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
And I think we all agree on nostalgic lights on Inglacia and San Dimas Avenue. Is that fair?
You're right, the nostalgic. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then I think we all agree on proposed nostalgia on 2nd Street, those two up there. So I think the only question is that stretch of Walnut that currently has the wooden Copenhagen.
Right.
And we'd basically be stripping away those wooden Copenhagen and replacing them with something completely different rather than what we had there in the past.
And
so it sounds like we're talking a hybrid 1 and 2, options 1 and 2.
Yeah, the only difference I was proposing with this was Walnut for the 3 lights that are currently the wooden Copenhagen, the first 3 lights on Walnut that are currently wooden Copenhagen, we replace with steel Copenhagen, which is at City Hall. And then everything north of that in front of the library, those last 3 in Dakota would be the nostalgic.
So it's really, yeah.
Do you understand that, Sherry?
Yes.
It's option 1, except for those 3 lights under
Right.
further consideration, and I think, can we come back to you with that?
Okay, so we'll bring those others back for consideration. Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
I hope you understand.
I don't think we missed a light.
Well, I like the idea that we're putting electricity at the top, and then look at look and see about the bottom and see if it's practical. But I know that we've had events that are actually on Bonita, and one of the things you keep hearing about is we need electricity and we can't do that. And then pretty soon they're bringing in generators, and people are walking down lots of different generators, people crossing over. Maybe we make it easier. Maybe we can bring a little more events to the downtown area. So,
Okay, and then for the Copenhagens that are on Walnut, do you want the same type pole, or a typical pole does not have the socket on the top or the bottom, or the aperture for hanging a flag or anything?
I personally am for you studying it, you decide what you need to do.
I don't think we decided on Copenhagen for those 3 poles.
So I thought on the south side.
I'm sorry, were you talking about Walnut?
On Walnut, right?
No, that's Ryan's suggestion.
Oh.
Dennis and I, at least, were saying the other nostalgic all the way, alternative 1. And I think Eric started out there, but was, and so am I deferring to Ryan and saying, well, let's look and see if there's a problem with.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's not how I understood it. I thought there was consensus.
I understood, maybe Dennis correct me, when I said I'm okay with alternative 2, I thought Dennis said, I'm okay with that. Yes. And that's the way, so that's where, I think we have some mixed messages.
My understanding, just so we're clear, was that the first 3 lights were going to be the wooden Copenhagen replaced with steel Copenhagen, and the last 3 lights were going to be nostalgia, as discussed. So it was essentially a splitting of the 6 lights on Walnut, was my understanding.
That's what I understood. Is that's.
I missed it. I didn't understand it that way, so I apologize, and I'm not in favor of that.
Okay.
But I don't mind waiting on those 3 to see. We can all go out there and see if there's a problem, or with the LEDs around City Hall, which is what you're talking, around Civic Center Park.
So do you want us to wait on all of Walnut, or just the 3 top ones?
So my preference is to, if we're going to wait on those 3 poles just between Walnut and the end of City Hall.
Okay.
Until we see, but that's my preference. It almost sounded like everybody else wanted to go with Copenhagen, so I don't want to get in the way of that, but I'm thinking we should wait to see.
Is there a way to see it, to see it in action or not?
Let me bring it back to you. We'll see. There's different foundation types, but foundation's a minimal cost. We can install one and you take a look at it, and if we can do that as well.
I have no problem with waiting. If it's one necessity, I'm going to go with alternative 2. But if it's not going to create a big problem for the staff, I am interested in seeing what John's talking about. I haven't seen the halo effect on the ones that Ryan are talking about, but I do remember that we went out and looked at lights, probably a couple of times over the last. So if that's, everybody's thought process, I'm perfectly capable with it, but I don't know where your time frame stands with ordering what you need to order.
Well, definitely we can get the Copenhagens replaced, and then we'll look at, we'll bring something back to council on a proposal for trying to look at the different style of lights and the impacts on the eyes and the aesthetics. So, but my direction, what I'm understanding is Copenhagen's all on Bonita, and then install the first 3 as Copenhagen's on Walnut. As you go up Walnut, and then we're going to wait on the last 3?
No. The last 3 are Copenhagen. Well, depending on how you look at this. From 2nd Street going south would be a continuation of those existing nostalgia lights that were put in there.
Okay.
But essentially, after the library, the
Right.
last 3 would be the steel Copenhagen.
Okay, that's what I understood. So,
Okay, so where do we stand at the end of the day right now?
Well, from what I understand, John would rather see nostalgia completely, all 6 lights on Walnut, and that's the only thing. And I'm basically looking at it saying the only 3 of those lights that currently are wooden Copenhagen, we would just replace with steel Copenhagen, which I think for a number of reasons, both aesthetically, consistency, as well as just the history of the style, would complement this city hall very well. So that would be my 2 cents on that.
I think Shirley understands, we're just confused.
Yeah, I think you're right.
we'll bring something back as a consent item for you to look at, and if it's not what you understand, then we can pull it off, and I can try again. So.
No, you did a
good job.
You're on the right path. We're just on the wrong wavelength. So maybe we'll all kind of come in and talk to you one-on-one and figure out what.
I might decide all the lights need to be Copenhagen. Who knows?
Okay.
All right. Do we need anything else, Jeff? You got direction. Good luck.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Okay. Select replacement light bulb. I thought that was going to be pretty easy. Okay. Resolution 2021-24, update on amendments of the Board of Commissioners and the committee handbooks. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In December of 2020, the council discussed the city's board commission handbook, and an action was taken to direct us to take a look at bringing back draft language. In January, the city council discussed potential changes, 3 or 4 different sections in particular, but then the direction was given to bring forth a study session to go through in more detail aspects of the entire handbook. And so we held 2 study sessions on March 30th and April 13th, where we went through a large spreadsheet and talked about a variety of different sections and received guidance from the council with respects to what was the kind of action you wanted to see, and that staff would draft the language and bring forward the handbook with that language to codify the action you wanted to see. And so what you have right now is a resolution approving the handbook and the handbook with the drafts. However, We were originally planning this to be on the May agenda item, and so the final revisions were slated for May, and what you got was the version right before that. So there's some revisions that need to be made to this handbook to be consistent with the council's action, and I just need direction how you want me to present those.
Questions?
Chris, what was handed out and was on the dais, that's the version that was going to be in May 11th meeting originally, right?
Correct. You should have 2 documents, and those 2 documents are posted online for the public to access. One is the actual final revised handbook, and then another document is a 6-page document, which we can throw on the screen if it's actually easier if you want to go through them, is a highlights of what changed from what's in the current agenda to that final version that was posted online and provided to you today. And so what you see in your agenda and what you see online and what you have that's in red only are the changes that were on the agenda packet that were made. Anything that's now highlighted yellow and still red is in addition to what's in the agenda.
Got it. Mr. Mayor, I just have 2 questions.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so I just have, so I think Chris and Deborah have done a great job, and whoever else was involved, in putting what the council intended in the document. So I respect that. I have 2 questions about whether the language is clear enough. So I had many of these before and communicated with Chris, and a lot of things got put in there. There are 2 remaining. So I was wondering if council this is the one that looks like this with a little gray box to the right. It's what was on the dais today. That's the latest, and that's what the handbook will actually be. That after, so it's not the one that was in the agenda packet originally.
If I may, council member, at the bottom footer it should say revised attachment B is the most current version.
Yes.
Attachment B, which is in the agenda, is the older version.
Thank you, Chris. So I'm looking at, there's just 2 questions. Page 9,
Okay.
near the bottom, it's under the Parks and Recreation Commission. The last paragraph, it says the commission, so with the changes in yellow, it will say the commission consists of 7 commissioners who will be appointed to 2-year terms with a maximum length of service of 3 full consecutive terms. 1 commissioner will be a youth commissioner who serves 1-year term increments. I just wondering if the rest of you are seeing what I'm seeing. It sounds like there are 7 commissioners who have 2-year terms, and you can have 3 of them, and that there is a youth commissioner who has 1-year increments. I would suggest, because that commission only has 7 members, one of which is the youth member, Chris, I would just suggest that we put 3 extra words in there, so that it would read, the commission consists of 7 commissioners, 6 of whom will be appointed to 2-year terms, et cetera. 1 commissioner will be a youth commissioner, et cetera. I think that clarifies that there's 6 regular members, 1 youth member. Otherwise, it's confusing because it says 7 commissioners have the 2-year terms, and that's not actually the case.
Do we ever have a problem with getting a youth commissioner?
We've had problems kind of way back when. I remember there were a couple times when it was hard to get one, but not normally.
I don't know. My concern only is that if we had a problem with a youth commissioner, if it came out 3-3, how does this tie get broken?
No, we don't have a problem with the youth commissioner. In fact, lately we've had more interest, and more importantly, the youth commissioners have been willing to give their opinions. In the past, a long time ago, youth commissioners would sometimes just sit there almost like it was a assignment from school or something, but we have participating youth members now for the past 10 years anyway.
Yeah, I had a prior youth commissioner come up to me and talk to me and said it was a great opportunity for him to learn.
Exactly.
Deborah, did you have something?
I'm not recalling that much success with youth commissioners.
I'm sorry, what now?
I'm not recalling having that much success with youth commissioners. The last one that we appointed, I remember Hector, it took a long time for him to find that young man. And I don't know if if the stalling point was the staff person at the school who wasn't getting back to us or communicating it to the students, but it took a long time to get the last person who was seated on the board. And we usually do have problems getting youth commissioners, and we will get one, and then they show up for some of the meetings, and I can go back and look at the attendance, but youth commissioner, there's usually a problem with staff getting someone to sit on that.
I haven't noticed that problem, and we should look at the minutes. The current youth commissioner, Yvonne, or Ivan, depending on if you're in America or Mexico, but Yvonne is, he's been at all the meetings he could be at, which I think was one, and when we had that special meeting with the 3 members, it wasn't a commission meeting, but just the 3 members, he was on that call. So he's got 100% attendance so far. Bailey, I remember, I don't know if she was the last one.
No, she was quite a while ago.
Okay.
There was one in between her and Yvonne. And Yvonne, yes, he's been in attendance because there's only been one meeting. But prior to getting him, and I think it took some doing even to get him on board. I don't know what took so long, but we were halfway into the school year, I think, before they found him.
But what about if we leave you at 7 and then have a youth commissioner be your 8? Because otherwise you're going to change to 6 and you're still going to be even. I'm just worried about what Deborah's telling us, but I also know that you're there, and I know that I haven't interviewed or talked to all that many, but the ones I talked to, they found it very enlightening and
they did.
Cooperation.
And we don't necessarily have to have a youth member, but one was added eons ago because we just wanted to get a perspective of somebody who was in high school or college.
I'm extremely in favor of a youth commissioner, but
I support John's language. Just to clarify that the youth commissioner is the 7th member of that commission, to clarify that point, serving a 1-year term.
Yeah.
If I may just read it, since we're actually going to be approving this. The commission consists of 7 commissioners, 6 of whom, will be appointed to 2-year terms with a maximum length of service of 3 full consecutive terms. 1 commissioner, there's a typo there, will be a youth commissioner who serves 1-year term increments. The staff liaison to the commission is the director of Parks and Recreation.
And how is that youth commissioner?
Chris, I would just propose it's the 7th commissioner. It just makes more, 1 commissioner. You said 6, but you'd be referring to the 7th commissioner being a youth member.
I think that makes it even more clear.
Yeah, I think, I agree.
But
does he go through he or she, do they go through the same process?
They do not. They actually are chosen by staff after recruiting from the high schools with whatever liaisons or contacts they have.
They do go through a recruiting process, just not through the clerk's office. It's usually between the government, the teacher, and staff.
Would that be Mr. Millhouse?
Yes. Yeah.
And the council is not involved in that appointment.
No. Okay.
If I may add, there's no language in the board and commission handbook about the appointment of the youth commissioner. And so what we're discussing right now about how that appointment's occurring is not codified. And so absent language related to that, we would be appointing it in the same manner. It would appear to anybody who reads this document that you appoint a youth commissioner for 1-year terms in the same manner we appoint a regular commissioner.
Okay, so how do we correct it to go what John is saying?
And so I see the value of a youth commissioner given the amount of recreational services that we offer in the community that's targeted towards youth. And so you could leave it as 7 commissioners with 2-year terms, and the decision of the council when you evaluate candidates to decide to always have a youth commissioner serving on the commission, or just designate one of the 2-year positions to be a youth commissioner to be selected by, and then fill in the blank.
I almost wonder, though, that a youth commissioner, is only a youth commissioner so long. And I also think there's challenges with college and other things that a young person encounters. So I would almost propose to you, Chris, that you add language that says, one is, the seventh commissioner shall be a youth commissioner who serves a term at 1 year. That commissioner shall be selected by the city staff in collaboration with the local school district. Is that who's it's been done
Local
with?
schools, yeah, because they'll reach out to.
Students at 12th grade, they're only going to probably.
Yeah, local high school.
They can stay through into college, and some have.
Or done in collaboration with local schools. I don't want to limit it to, there's a lot of schools in this area, so, or.
Right. No, I agree with you, Ryan.
Ryan's interpretation of it.
So let me read it one more time. The commission consists of 7 commissioners, 6 of whom will be appointed to 2-year terms with a maximum length of service of 3 full consecutive terms. The 7th commissioner will be a youth commissioner who serves 1-year term increments. The youth commissioner will be selected by city staff in collaboration with local schools. The staff liaison to the commission is the director of Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, that's clear. I mean, the only reason I'm asking this question is because we want to make it clear, and I think we just overlooked the different appointment process about the youth, and yeah, so that's good.
I agree. Thank you.
So hopefully the next one isn't quite as long of a discussion. I only have one other question.
Okay, go ahead, and then I have one question.
Okay, and that's on page 14 about attendance. Chris and I went over this, and if
Which packet are you reading from?
I'm again looking at the new one, yes, the revised.
Yep.
It says revised attachment B, page 14 at the bottom. So I just want to make sure the council is all good with this, and if everybody is, that's fine with me. It's under the heading attendance, and you look at the red writing, which is basically talking about absences, and it says, as a result, a member, this is already in there, a member may be removed when absent from 3 consecutive meetings in a term. Then red starts, so it's new. When a pattern of repeated absences becomes apparent, or by majority vote of the commission, committee, or board for good cause. Then it goes back to what's already there, except in the cases of illness or excused absences, et cetera. So what I want to ask the council is, are we giving, so it's all about attendance and absences, but it seems like something about good cause, like other than absences.
It seems like we're giving them the ability, the power to vote somebody gone.
Well, and of course, it's subject to the ratification of the city council, but we had talked about giving them the power to vote off a member if there's some kind of disruptive behavior, they're breaking rules or whatever they do.
It still needs to be codified by us.
So I think we want it to be in there, but is it at all unclear that we're talking about other things besides attendance or are we just talking about attendance in that sentence? That's what was unclear to me.
So what you're saying is if we wanted to put that somewhere, maybe not under the attendance heading would be a better place?
That's what I would say if we're talking about something other than attendance.
That makes sense to me, actually, yeah.
I would actually propose striking everything after or by majority vote, blah, 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 all the way to the word except. I think any of these good cause reasons would come to the attention of city staff and therefore the council, and doesn't really seem necessary. So I would propose we stick to attendance, which is what I think this section was trying to do, and eliminate that everything after or.
I'm okay with that too, because if it's serious enough, staff would bring it to the city manager, who would probably bring it to the
liaison.
City council, and the city council would have to take on that tough role of saying, okay, they can stay with a warning or they're out or something like that.
Right.
If I may read that, and let me know if this is what your intent is, and I'll start mid-paragraph. As a result, a member may be removed when absent from 3 consecutive meetings in a term, or when a pattern of repeated absences becomes apparent, except in the case of illness or excused absence by prior permission of the commission, committee, or board.
Hear, hear.
Is that acceptable? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Councilman Ebner, those were your 2 additions that weren't listed in the final document.
Those are my 2 clarifications. I'll have some comments when we discuss, but.
So do we want to go start to finish? Do we want to just leave it as is and go over the revisions? Or do we want to just...
Chris, unless, I mean, I know there maybe want to be some discussion, but for the purposes of facilitating things, I'll make a motion that we approve the staff's proposals with the changes just made as proposed.
A second.
Okay, discussion?
Yes, I just wanted to make a couple comments. They're not going to be that long. I intend to vote for the handbook with the revisions and with everything that the council's majority decided to include. So, but I do want to still say on two things. In just a second, let me get my place here. And so, as you know, I was not in favor of prohibiting relatives from serving on the commissions, and I still feel that way. I think it's instructive that we were offered maybe 3 examples of cities who have these kinds of prohibitions, and I'm sure there are others, but we were given 3 examples: Brea, California, College Station, Texas, and Princeton, Texas. It is, I looked up all 3 of those, those are the only ones I knew. It's hard to find them, and that's probably why, but most cities don't have this kind of prohibition. The one in Brea, though, was a little interesting. It said, this is all it said really in that ordinance, 1205, that they passed in 2018, I believe. No council member shall nominate, in Brea, council members nominate different people. No council member shall nominate or vote for a relative for membership on any commission in the city. So when you take out the nominating part, let me just read it again. No council member shall vote for a relative for membership on any commission in the city. That's actually exactly what I was proposing, if you might remember. I proposed that the council member who had a relative who was being somehow was being considered, that the council member whose relative it was would recuse him or herself from any kind of interviewing or voting regarding that particular member. And I just wanted to point that out, that I believe, if I'm reading it right, that's what Brea is saying. Would they defer to the person saying, oh, we don't want to have relatives at all, or defer to maybe there's a spirit of the law there that's not quite codified, but so that's my only comment on that. The other part is about the interaction with the public. I think what we came up with is way too restrictive. It basically spends 2.5 paragraphs, paragraph and a half, I would say, out of 4 paragraphs.
What page are you on?
Oh, this is on page 25, so it's near the end. And saying how important it is that commissioners need to get permission to speak and not say anything that, might be construed as representing the city unless they have specific permission to speak. And I think that this could be palatable in a certain way if in paragraph 2, we just take out the words "or other statements." So in other words, board members, commissioners, and committee members should take care not to state or imply that their views or expressions of opinions are an official policy. And I'd be okay, and then it talks about doing the disclaimer and everything. And I'd be okay with that. The reason
I'm a little confused about where you're at.
Page 25 at the top.
Uh-huh.
Second paragraph.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So I think the first paragraph is fine. It's kind of an admonition that you want to represent the city well and in what you say. And the reason I say that about the statements is that last week I gave an example, but which was, as you remember, a member of the public says to a commissioner, there's a problem over at someplace, and you're a member of that commission, aren't you? To which the commissioner replies, yes, I am, and we're looking into it. if you take this literally, you couldn't say that. In fact, if you take this literally, you couldn't have a senior commissioner say, the dance is on Thursday, because he hasn't been authorized to say that. You couldn't have an equestrian commissioner post, there's a trail cleanup in 2 weeks and we want volunteers. Or you couldn't have a Parks and Rec commissioner say, we're going to have snow this year at the holiday extravaganza. And you couldn't have a public safety commissioner say, the CERT program has now been taken under the wing of the city, which is providing money. So statements of that nature should not have to be cleared, or at least if you look at it literally, they have to be cleared when you say that all statements can't be made unless you first have a disclaimer saying, this is my opinion, or I mean, it would just be weird to say, I think there's a trail cleanup or something like that. So that's my beef with, I mean, I don't like the whole thing anyway, but to make it a little bit better, I would just like clarification, at least in our understanding of it, even if it's not even written down, it should be written down, that we're not prohibiting people from just stating facts that happen at the commission and are part of the city programs.
I understand that, John, and I do agree with you, but I'm not sure how we word it, because I certainly wouldn't want a commissioner, like, like question guys said, hey, we're having a cleanup thing and we come down with a hammer on him. Because that's how we get people. Communications is how we get people to volunteer and do things. So, yeah, I understand about you saying we're being very restrictive, and I'm not sure how we can word it, but I think, I don't know that there's common sense involved, because all these people use common sense, but we need to use common sense on how we.
Well, I think ask for a little bit of clarification from staff. On page 25, there's 4 paragraphs, and 2 of those are in red, which is what's in the binder, and then 2 are in red but highlighted, which means they're in the revised. Would those 2 paragraphs highlighted in yellow as part of the revised attachment be included in addition to those previous 2 paragraphs, or replace those 2 previous paragraphs?
Yes, based on the discussion of council, the last 2 paragraphs should have been included in the draft, but they weren't. And so they're highlighted in yellow that they're in red because they should be there. They're highlighted in yellow that they're being put in subsequent to the agenda posting.
Okay, so it's in supplement to those previous 2.
Correct. And okay. when in terms of writing this language and how I read it, we could get very literal. I mean, and you're right. So somebody could try to make the argument, the Public Safety Commission talked and said the sky's blue, and somebody's saying the sky's blue, and just by the mere fact you're on the commission, somebody could say, aha, now you're saying something, you don't have permission to say that. That's not the intent. The intent is you should take care. And so when I'm stating something, that it's a reasonable statement or fact or view, that by the mere fact or implication that I'm on the commission, that the other party would perceive that as being something official coming from the commission. And so if the city was holding in a public safety event or having a CERT program, and a member of the commission said, hey, the city is doing a CERT program, that would be no different than a member of the public saying, hey, the city is doing a CERT program. It wouldn't be, that's another statement that you shouldn't be saying unless you get permission to. What's really intended is, I have a view, I have an opinion, and now other stuff needs to be very carefully weighed against. Are you implying that you're speaking on behalf of the commission is the case? No, you don't have to always say, well, in my opinion, and it's just the views of myself, I think the sky is blue. No, I mean, yeah, it's not intended to be that.
I think some of it comes down to is, in law enforcement, for example, there's 2 concepts called the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And realistically, I think anybody can read, one sentence and deduce a statement to be quite literal, but I think if somebody reads this entire section in its entirety, I think the spirit of the section addresses the concern, and I think the council and staff understand the spirit of this section through the discussion. So I'm okay with it as written, and I would hope that staff understands, at least the way I understood it when council had this discussion, was the spirit of the discussion, not to limit someone, but to your point about the clarification, being mindful of statements that could be construed as otherwise.
All those paragraphs have to be taken together. If you look at paragraph 2 and you take very explicitly a subsection of it, yes, you could interpret it as you can't make any statements if you're a commissioner. But if you look at the third paragraph and the fourth paragraph, and then the third paragraph specifically, when you say, when such statements could reasonably be interpreted to be official policy statement, position, or communication, then yes. And so how would I do that? I've been a member of the Public Safety Commission now for 6 years. I'm one of their most senior members. I'm very experienced in the matters that they're doing. And a CERT program is the most important program we should have. Now, if you take the CERT program as the most important program you should have, anybody could say that, and it means the same thing. But all the preface language of it to give somebody the implications like it's the official position of a commissioner of the city is what changes the dynamics of that statement into, well, that guy is really talking about the commission's position. I mean, can he talk about, that's the distinction. And so, no, a commissioner can speak freely like any member of the public, but just has to be mindful to not imply or overtly apply that this is coming from the commission or the city's policy is that you should be checking yourself the same way we should all be checking ourselves. Like, as the city manager, there's nothing, everything I say is going to be interpreted like that must be the city's position by just the mere fact of the position. So I have to be careful. That's the same thing that would apply to a commissioner. We can change it. I'm welcome to change it. It's your policy, but the intent was never to stop a commissioner from being able to speak, talk about activities. Just don't make it such that you're speaking on their behalf unless you've been specifically told, hey, go tell the council, go speak to the press, go do this on our behalf.
I am still going to vote for it, but most cities don't have that. I mean, the surrounding ones that I've read anyway, they have the first part of it, be mindful, all this kind of stuff, but they don't have so much explicit, get permission, don't be really careful. I think it's a discouragement. If somebody's reading the handbook and saying, do I want to be on a commission, and they see 4 paragraphs admonishing them on what they can and cannot say in public as a commissioner, I think it's a discouragement. And just in basic terms, I think it's just way too restrictive on a person just talking in a normal setting. But as I say, those are my thoughts on it. I think it's very restrictive. I don't think we need it. Almost every other city doesn't have it. And I don't see where there's been a problem in San Dimas. And that's about it, all I have to say.
John, as I read this, it doesn't say that you can't have your own personal opinion.
Correct.
As long as you make sure that it is stated that it is your personal opinion and not the opinion or the policy of the city.
No.
Which is good.
You can have your personal opinion on matters.
And express it too.
Correct.
But I believe in this, instead of saying the city of San Dimas believes in this.
Correct. Or prefacing it with the language about your participation in that commission and then saying, and I believe that the following should be done in the city. That piece would be, but that's just my opinion. That's not the official policy of the commission, if you stated it in that way.
Well, I understand, and I understand exactly what John's saying, but this is the place we have to flush it out.
Yeah.
But I'm very comfortable with what's written and common sense, and I think that when we get out of the realm of common sense, then we're all in the wrong program.
Yeah, and I just got to say, operatively, the real question is, okay, how are you going to implement this, right? And so when somebody makes a statement that potentially runs afoul of this, it would be, we would notify them and say, hey, we heard, this is what just written on your Facebook page or something happened. It looks like you may be speaking on behalf of the public and to the public in a way that violates this. We're not disciplining as staff. This is something we would bring to your attention as the council, and you would be deciding if there's any issue to be had this in the first place. And so if a statement's made and it's perceived as that may be speaking on behalf of a policy when they're not authorized to, it's only solely in the end going to be your call. if it is or isn't.
Okay. All right. I know that John's not comfortable with it. What about everybody else?
Well, I'm just going to say I'm going to vote in favor of this. I think Deborah and the city manager did a good job and did a lot of work. I am very opposed to the nepotism thing. I think that there's not a problem there, and we're looking for a problem and that didn't need a solution. But even with that, I think it's a very good document. I plan on voting in favor of it.
Okay. Do we need a motion or anything?
Call the question, Mayor. There's a motion.
There is a motion, okay. Call.
Motion by Councilmember Viana and second by Councilmember Weber.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. At the end of the day, I believe there was a lot of work put into this, a lot of thought, and I realize that there is still some controversy out there, but the reality is that I don't think anybody's talking about trying to endanger the council or endanger the city. There's lots of places for people to volunteer, lots of places for people to serve, and I would hope those people that have some concerns about this realize that everything that we do in this community is for this community. And then when we have lunches or picnics, barbecues, there's lots of room for everybody to participate. And, you know, even when we listen to people call in, you know, they're participating. A lot of folks never participated. So I think city staff, the city council, and the community is coming along pretty good, and I appreciate everybody's effort.
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank the council. This is the first time I've seen actually any governing body go through such a large document in fine detail as quickly and methodically as the council did. So we will be reviewing this annually, and so we'll take a look at if changes need to occur during the course of the year. We'll propose them, and then council can propose additional amendments, and then we'll clean up anything if we think it was a little onerous when we first did this.
Super. All right. Next thing we're going to go to is COVID-19 update, review, and direction on changes of meeting structure due to COVID-19 related restrictions. City Manager.
So at the last meeting, the council asked us to reach out to County Public Health and determine whether we could go back to the original rules, which would allow us to fill the room. I think the number was at 50% capacity, and while specifying what the controls were that we would put in place. And so we posed the question to public health, indicating that the council is looking to will be moving forward with allowing 50% capacity within the room and socially distanced, masks, you know, kind of along the lines of what movie theaters are currently authorized to do. And the response was, well, if you're following Exhibit A of the social distancing guidelines, that's acceptable. And so the public health is not prohibiting us from proceeding, but that's going to be at your discretion. And so staff's waiting to receive direction as to how you would like to proceed.
So we would be going back to the regular Brown Act regulations, right? We'd be reverting back to where we were a year and a half ago, or a year ago, right?
My understanding is you can go back to the original Brown Act provisions and allow, you know, and have restrictions as to the attendees for wearing masks and being socially distant in the capacity.
And it would be 50% capacity?
Correct. You could do that.
So what number are we actually talking? Let's look on the wall.
What does it say there? 110. 110.
So we could have 55.
It would say 55. I'd venture a guess it would be a little less than that given the number of chairs that are out there.
We have staff.
You would have to include us in these seats here too.
So if I understand the mayor, then it sounds like you're saying, or staff saying, that we could go back to 50% occupancy here, return to the normal Brown Act requirements, which would be basically in-person attendance, and then we would be able to allow the public to come in socially distanced. That's what we're saying.
Well, you can choose to do, go back to the Brown Act or Brown Act with the exceptions, and then the capacity number would just be the number of people that could be in the room. You can still have overflow outside in the hallway and outside if you had a really big item and a lot of people that came that were higher than that 50% capacity. The key here was that the county did not say no to allowing us to increase that capacity to the point which you can consider any direction.
One of the advantages of having people come here and speak is that you can understand them. There were a couple of the telephone calls tonight that I had a very difficult time of understanding what the person was saying. I don't know if anyone else had that problem, but I'm in favor of going back. Maybe not 50%.
I agree with Dennis, and I also, if we were to return to in-person meetings at 50% and upwards capacity when we get there as well, with the compliance with the Brown Act provisions as prior to COVID, I would support reconstituting a second oral comment period at 3 minutes after, as we previously had, to allow members of the public to comment for items on or off the agenda at a second oral communications period in person.
And that would eliminate the call-in sequence that we have. Is that the way I understand it?
So,
is there a skunk in here?
That's exactly what I was...
Sure smells like it.
How did it get in?
Make sure he has a mask on.
Does it matter that I was the first one to smell that?
Yeah. Wow.
I think it's coming from the outside. So I'm going to take this off because now I'm actually choking.
Let me just jump in here. That 3 minutes in the beginning would be to address items on the agenda, and 3 minutes at the end for items that aren't on the agenda.
I would actually propose, Mayor, that it would be items on or off the agenda at the first 3 minutes for like the chamber and the library and what have you, as I know they like to make their announcements. And then the second communications period for the public to be able to comment or follow up on items on or off the agenda.
All right, but I want to clarify that we would no longer be accepting call-ins.
Okay, so if...
I think we should have an overlap period so people can get used to coming back in person. So the calls in Zoom, I think, should still continue for some amount of time. I appreciate the improvement in the oral communications and having another period at the end, by the way. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, I would give it next meeting, and then the following meeting we start.
Can I just, for my own understanding, I realize they just opened vaccinations for pretty much everybody, is my understanding, right?
Correct, as in my update will show that it's a drop-in too, you don't need an appointment.
Okay. My only caveat, I'm totally in favor of going back to in-person. My only caveat would be is I would prefer, and my preference would be that when we do switch, it's within 30 days of that date. I'm sorry, no sooner than 30 days from that date, just to at least give anyone who wanted to get both of their vaccinations, to give them an opportunity to get them, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. I mean, I think we could still go back to in-person, but because some people haven't been vaccinated all the way yet, and they probably won't be for at least 30 days, like you're saying, allow participation via Zoom and phone calls, because otherwise they're going to be locked out. You know, you can't say to somebody, oh, it's safe now, come back in, when they haven't even gotten their vaccination yet. I say give them a chance to get their vaccination.
That would just be my preference. At least 30 days from that date of eligibility, and then that gives everyone at least an opportunity.
I would defer to the question. I don't think you can prohibit somebody from coming in. I think the question of have you been vaccinated or not to determine as to whether you can come to a public meeting.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying a person who wants to participate in the meeting who has not been vaccinated yet, they may not want to come here in person because they have not been vaccinated. They're worried for their own safety.
But there may be people who have decided that they're not going to be vaccinated.
And that's fine, as long as they have the option.
We can't put the vaccination police out the back door.
That would be, the only reason that I'm saying that is, as of right now, if we were to say next meeting, we're going to go back to this, which I'm not opposed to, but if somebody were to have the preference of being vaccinated, the entire population hasn't been able to get vaccinated yet and have both of their doses. So if we give that 30-day buffer, it just allows them the time, if they prefer, to get both of their doses before we do.
So Chris, what I would propose hearing Eric then is that we keep everything as is through May, and then effective the first meeting in June, which would be the 30 days or so you're describing, then we would go to the in-person meetings at whatever the allowable threshold is, minimally 50%, and reconstitute the provisions of the Brown Act. And that meeting in person also adds the second oral communications period with the 3 minutes for items on or off the agenda. Would be my proposal.
Would it be a question period at the end of the meeting too?
Yes,
like we had before.
So
3 minutes before and 3 minutes after.
So that would be the June 8th meeting, we would go back to normal.
That would be my proposal.
And you'd want to keep everything as is now until then?
Correct.
So,
including, the oral communications period and everything the same until we have this vaccination period that Eric's proposing.
What if people want to attend?
Well, they can still attend right now, right?
Well, no, but
they
can't
can
come
only
in and
attend
sit
for
down.
public comment.
Correct.
We're talking about 50% capacity for the entire meeting, if they want to come in.
Right. I think what I'm hearing is
no problem.
No change for 30 days now that they've opened it up for everybody without appointments. And after the 30 days, we will be going back to the original Brown Act without the emergency exceptions. And we'll have a 3-minute comment period for things on and off the agenda at the beginning, the meeting, and then a 3-minute comment period for things on and off the agenda at the end. It's over. There will be no more telephone, Zoom, or any other communication methods other than being in person in the room.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
What if some of the people who normally would come to a meeting decide that they would like to attend the meetings now, since we've already said that you could go 50%? I don't want to shove them out the front door.
So the 50% is you may, it's your choice, but you're still operating under the emergency exceptions to the Brown Act because of the pandemic, and that's what you are at right now at this meeting. And what I'm hearing is we're going to continue that. So if I want to attend the meeting and watch it, you can't watch it in person. You have to be on Zoom.
That's what Councilmember Vienna's motion was. But the mayor is suggesting that instead of keeping it exactly the same until the first meeting in June, we keep it exactly the same, except people can come in to the meeting, watch the entire meeting,
it just
not just public comment.
I have no problem with that. Yeah.
50%.
Because it makes more sense that we're kind of leading on, trying to get people to get, in that path. And quite honestly, we have people who want to come who have been, vaccinated and everything else. I just think that's the first step is to get people to become accustomed to it. And I don't have any problem with people calling in and Zooming until, that June 8th meeting, if that's what we agree on. Okay, but I think we should allow people to come in, keeping that 50% threshold. And, if rumor has it, that threshold is going to change June 15th.
My only concern about that is, to John and Eric's point, is that if people are attending and some are vaccinated or some not, then it kind of negates the whole point of waiting. So I don't know why we're waiting then, if we're going to allow them to attend anyways through their own fruition when there's been ample opportunity for Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Moderna. So I know, you can go drop in on an appointment now and what have you. So I'm good either way. It's just food for thought.
Yeah.
I'm good with people showing up right now. I mean, if we wanted to do 50% capacity, and that was just my 2 cents about holding off on pulling the
cord on the Zoom and the phone.
I'm I personally am okay with opening it up for 50%. People who want to come, leave us the telephone calls in, leave the Zoom in, and then each meeting we make sure that people know that June 8th, if that's the date we choose, there'll be no more call in or no more Zoom, and we're going to be back to some normalcy. And I think
that's like a motion, and I would second it.
No, you make the motion, I'll second it.
I just had one more.
But that's a good idea.
Yeah. So I'm in favor. I'm just talking about the amount of time to go before we pull the plug. So there's 2 meetings between now and June 8th. Mm-hmm. I would recommend or suggest we go a 3rd meeting. And one reason is the Moderna vaccination, as you probably know, the vaccinations are 4 weeks apart, and effectiveness is 2 weeks after that. So there's really 6 weeks rather than Pfizer's, a lot. It's only three weeks before the second vaccination, then 1 week. But so in those 6 weeks, we're talking 42 or let's say 45 days. Going to the second meeting in June to pull Zoom and phone calls gives everybody a chance to get the vaccination, get fully, their immunity effective. And so if they want to attend the meeting, they have to attend it in person.
So we're not requiring people to be vaccinated to attend the meeting. So
No, this is for some, okay. I think Eric was saying the same thing I'm trying to say, is that if you have somebody who is not vaccinated, say they're 40 years old and they just got approved to get vaccinated, they've got an immunocompromised parent, sibling, child, whatever. That person is not going to want to come to a meeting until they themselves are vaccinated because they are worried they might get something in the meeting. So I think in deference to the people who are worried about the safety of their loved ones, or themselves for that matter, we should go the maximum amount of time it takes for the effectiveness of the vaccination in deference to that person's health.
I just think June 15th, I hear what you're saying. I just think the governor's already said June 15th, we're pulling the trigger on all of this, essentially, with most of the restrictions. And I also think that there's been ample opportunity for those who want to get vaccinated. And now, even with drop-in appointments, it's basically they're closing some mass vaccination sites at this point. So if there's someone that would like to be here, and I think there is some provisions for accommodations for people in the window of time. I wouldn't have a problem with an accommodation, but I just don't, kind of to Dennis's point, I mean, people are going out to eat, they're going out to get groceries, they're going out to survive. I'm not, if council desires to push it out, I'm not opposed, but I don't see it being necessary.
Right.
I would go with what the mayor recommended.
Yeah, I believe that, June 8th is an ample date, plus we open it up for 50%. I respect what John's saying, but I think people have had time continuous. They're talking now that they're having problems getting people to go test, or not test, but to take vaccinations. They were, something like half the country is saying, I'm not going to take it, or I'm not going to do it. I think we just need to move forward. And as Ryan said, we'll do an accommodation is what we have to do. But I would propose that June 8th becomes our date, that we open up the city council chambers and we do away with the phone calls and the Zoom. And anybody as of this moment who wants to come and attend, as long as we have 50%, is able to come in. We do have people out there who are just going like this, wanting to come to meetings, want to be here. And we all know who those people are, the Margie Greens, the Bob Olanders, and a lot of other people. They want to come back to normalcy, and I think that's normal. Well, although I do respect what John's saying, I think people have had an opportunity, and people can continue to have the opportunity. So
I support the mayor and Dennis in that.
I just want to clarify, was there an actual motion? Because I'm a little confused. Who?
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
Okay, you made a motion, I seconded.
Okay.
Second.
I made the motion. I don't like to normally make motions, but in this particular case, I'm comfortable with this motion.
So just to clarify again, just so I don't screw it up. So we will continue the status quo with the addition of allowing up to 50% in-person attendance all the way up to June 8th. And at that point, we will go back without the emergency suspension to the Brown Act and continue with our regular meetings with the addition of a public comment period at the beginning of 3 minutes for things on and off the agenda, and then a public comment period at the end.
I would just clarify, it's not an addition. We're going to continue the oral communications period as current, and we're going to add a second comment period.
Of 3 minutes for both on and off the agenda.
The only change in that is that we're going from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. Right? Is that the way I understand it?
Well, I was proposing it at 3 minutes, which would be a modification from where we previously were.
So that would be my motion.
And then the phone and the Zoom will end as of June 8th, correct?
Correct.
Will not occur on June 8th.
It will not occur on June 8th, is what you're saying.
It will not occur.
Okay. That's the only thing that I disagree with, and not only should they occur, if we're going to pull the plug, we should pull it with more notice, and I hope that during the interim, we're going to say at every meeting, the 2 meetings we have, and put it on the website in some way. But then also, hadn't really given it much thought, but what would be the harm of having Zoom? I'm just wondering if everybody can come in person, why couldn't you also have Zoom? Which, by the way, has a phone option that is not even, you don't have to be on the screen or anything. You can just be on the phone. So you could do away with the regular phone calls and have everything be Zoom. You don't even need a computer. But I'm just thinking that just for people to be able to view the meetings and participate, that we could do it. I know that's not the majority opinion, so I'm just pointing that out. That's another thought that occurs to me. But the main reason I will not support the motion is because I don't think it's enough time. 45 days I can see, but 30 is just 30 or 38, whatever it is just a little too short.
I appreciate that, but I think 2 meetings notice is pretty fair.
All right.
Okay, and then we can get back to some normalcy. And I certainly appreciate the fact that people have called in, they've participated in Zoom, although there's a group of folks who really like that, there's a group of folks who want to see the meeting.
If there's someone that really wants the vaccine and really wants to attend, Johnson & Johnson is a single shot, and they'll be ready to go in time for our meeting.
You're right.
I have a question. So the June 8th action that you guys presented, is that going to be with 50% capacity also, or full capacity?
Nothing is full capacity. It's all 50% capacity.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would only then propose just a little amendment that if the Public Health Department increases capacity between now and then, that we would reflect the highest capacity possible.
Okay. And just because the governor says, he's going to change these restrictions, we still need to wait until what county health tells us so, and that's the president said today, anybody that's vaccinated in small groups don't have to wear a mask, but the president isn't the president of the LA County, so if that's where it's at. Okay, so I guess we call the question.
So did the motion maker accept that amendment? Who made the motion?
Yes.
He did, and the seconder? Okay.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1 with Councilman Ebner voting no. All right, let's move to the next. Do we have a COVID-19 update? Other than this?
I think that beaded drum. So.
Okay. Do we have a goal line update?
Lone Hill Avenue south of Auto Center Drive will be closed to traffic from May 3rd to May 7th. While the closure is in the city of Glendora, the traffic will be detoured through San Dimas and will impact Allen Avenue, San Dimas Avenue, and Gladstone. And we've been publicizing that closure on our website.
Okay, thank you. You have a city manager update?
The only item I'll have, well, two items actually. First, I've asked council for their availability to schedule a study session for May 13th. That's a Thursday, May 13th at 6:30. The purpose of the study session is to discuss quality of life in the city of San Dimas and to offer the public an opportunity and the council to talk to publicly about what are the issues facing our community, what are possible solutions, have some presentations from staff, the sheriff's office on programs and services that are offering, and to build up to the creation of a quality of life task force to deal holistically and long-term with quality of life issues in the city. I think after the last conversation we had, trying to shoehorn what we're going to use some state dollars for pallet sheltering made it very clear that we need to have a lot of conversations and start immediately on talking about quality of life issues and the best approach forward. That's the first piece. The second piece.
What time is that?
6:30 on Thursday, May 6:30 in the evening. May 13th, Thursday.
Is that on the Outlook calendars yet?
We will be sending it out this week and publicizing it this week to make sure we maximize the public input.
And you'll send it out to the council?
Yes.
All right, anything else?
The other update is the Senate's Governance and Finance Committee heard an update on SB 9. What was interesting is they didn't publish the updates or the video until midnight last night. And so the committee, I listened to it today. It was a very interesting session. Lots of speakers just saying their name and their organization because that's the amount of time that they had. But some of the updates, the committee voted to accept the committee consultant's recommendations, some clarifying amendments, changing references to any of the tentative and final maps to any parcel maps, including a definition of a local agency which we would apply, specifying that urban lot splits can only occur on parcels in single-family residential zones, and that clarifying that junior ADUs cannot be constructed on parcels that use both some of the duplex provisions and lot split provisions. And so technically, under SB 9, what you're going to see is the ability to go to a single-family home zoning, lot split it, in a way that the smallest piece shall be no less than 40% the square footage of the entire parcel. Allow the building of 2 units on each of those parcels, restricting the city's objective standards to such that would not prohibit somebody from building at least 800 square feet on those parcels, and imposing some temporary restrictions such as owner occupancy until 2027 in terms of the single family home. Still, and Councilmember Ebner has been following this. Like me, it's still a terrible bill for us, not something that we would want because we would lose that control. And that owner occupancy requirement would actually be only if the local jurisdiction, us, imposed that by code when the law passes.
Yes, the attending that was just listening to it basically. So you called in, so I did attend that hearing, and did not have a chance to speak. But as Chris said, you were basically able to say your name and are you with a neighborhood group, a city council, or whatever. And I support or oppose. That was about it. But yes, they talked about, well, Senator Hertzberg is the one member who, of the 5 who are on that committee, But he and Portantino both are concerned about the local control and what effect this is going to have. So they are trying to get the bill modified to be better or less worse, let's put it that way, less worse. But last I heard these things that they were assured would be in there. Some of them aren't actually in the bill yet, so we'll have to wait and see if what the promises are actually get in there. But they did say that, the good part is that cities can apply certain standards. Among those standards, Chris mentioned the ownership of, I believe it's one of the units on the property. We could mandate it's owned by a person living there. But other ones are things we might already have or some we don't. What I heard was height limits, we could apply those, floor area ratio, setbacks, and objective design standards. I did not hear lot coverage mentioned. And the reason I mention that right now is that we have lot coverage restrictions, but we do not have floor area restrictions. If they do not allow lot coverage restrictions, we've got nothing. It means that somebody could just build, besides the setbacks of 4 feet around the property, build wall to wall, from the front setback, which is usually 20 feet, could be less in some places, but all the way to the back property line. So we'll have to see what's in the bill. Again, floor area ratio, and I've said this multiple times over the years, is the best way of actually achieving the kind of development you want for every neighborhood in the city. And I urge, and I saw floor area ratio as a definition in the current code, but I don't know if it's applied anywhere. But we have to really apply these things so that we, as I said before in the ADU discussion, we don't need to, we may be required to allow certain things, but we're not required to allow more. And we should start developing standards that meet what we want the community to be. When I say we, I mean the entire community of San Dimas, and we five are really responsible for making sure that happens. It's not going to happen all by itself. In fact, if we don't do anything, it's just, it's the end of single-family neighborhoods.
So the way I interpret the actual language in the revisions, our objective standards can still apply. But I see now, if you take a 7,500 square foot lot, you're effectively saying you can parcelize that into two and put 2 units on it. And so like a duplex. All your objective standards would still apply. So your setback requirements that's currently in code, the lot coverage area, except when any of those objective standards inhibit or restrict somebody from building something at least 800 square feet. So if you parcelize it and I try to build a duplex and you have all these requirements and whatnot that make me, the biggest thing I can build is only going to be 600 square feet, then those objective standards under this law will not be enforceable.
Right.
So but you're right. So we should look at our code from the vein of assuming a law like this passes, and are there other tweaks we can make that accomplish our policy goals and objectives, even though the state's trying to shoehorn 2 houses in a half-size parcel than our normal size?
Yeah, we need to have all the tools we can have, and if we're leaving, if you go out on a site and you take your toolbox and you leave one tool behind that you need or that's going to be helpful, then you're not as effective as you could possibly be. We need to use every single tool that we are allowed to use. And one may call it restrictive, but that's the whole point of zoning, especially we're talking about single-family homes. And I know they said, okay, only 4 units. In the example I gave up there on the northwest corner of 4th and San Dimas Avenue, you now can have only 12 units in that parcel. That's if you take a look at that parcel, 12 units there is a lot. And I don't really even believe that they're going to stop there, because I'm pretty sure that once this is done, they're going to say, well, you could have the ADU and the JDU on the same piece of property. Why not? Because we're allowing it everywhere else. But anyway, that's my thoughts on that. And I did attend that. There's a little bit of movement, but we'll believe it when we see it, and we should consider these tools.
That was the end of my report.
Army?
That was the end of my report.
Okay, and just following up on John's comments, so many times we've done comments like that, and we've done nothing. So we need to figure out how do we put this together to go forward, because what you're saying is very true. But I just don't want to say it right here, and we shelve it. Let's talk about it and figure out how to do it, and I think that would be something that city manager and Henry out there should be hearing them, and I'd like to see something come back sometime in the future. But obviously we have to follow the bill and see where it's going. But we certainly don't want to be caught with our, hands up in the air.
There have never been 3 votes to look at floor area ratio, so I would certainly welcome if somebody wants to put that on the agenda. I'm not going to put it on the agenda because we've talked about it, and there's never been 3 votes to do floor area ratio. It's the best tool available. It's better than lot coverage, but you can have both. And when Hertzberg talked about it, they did not mention lot coverage. They mentioned all these other things that were objective standards that are possible. But, unless they specifically mention it, we'll have to read what it says. But I would certainly urge the council to consider asking staff to look into floor area ratio.
Well, I hate to I don't like making motions because I'm, supposedly the guy that breaks a tie. But the reality is, I'd like to hear about floor.
Okay,
so
thank
if
you.
I get somebody else to second me, then we'll go from there.
Second.
Okay.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Well, I'm not asking for it to be next week, 2 weeks from now, but keep it in your mind and let's hear something more about it.
I think, at least since I've been elected, there has been a staff presentation on this, so you probably could just dust that off and bring it forward.
I will make sure community development brings that forward.
Thank you. All right, we'll move off to city attorney.
Nothing for me tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, council members' reports on meeting attended at the expense of the local agency. Hearing none. Dennis?
Okay, I'll go first.
Yeah.
Talk about plastics. There's a big problem with recycling of plastics, and there's a big push to recycle plastic. And some of the manufacturers are claiming that their plastic is recyclable when it isn't. So the Council of Governments, or the COG, is endorsing a law that would make it illegal for anyone or any manufacturer to claim that their plastic is recyclable when it isn't. It doesn't outlaw plastic that's not recyclable, but you can't claim that it is. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, thank you. Eric?
Just a little clarification. I went and did some digging when we were having the discussion about reopening and vaccinations and such. And I think this breakdown of time actually makes a lot of sense. April 15th, it looks like, is when the state opened vaccinations up to anyone 16 and older. So April 15th to the June 8th meeting is actually 54 days. So I think that's plenty. Yeah, it'll be just a little over 7 weeks from the time that date opened. And then, as some may have seen via a Facebook post after the last city council meeting, the population of San Dimas grew by at least 1. And Clara joined our family, the Weber family, and we're so over the moon to have her home. And thanks for all of the well wishes from everybody on Facebook. Thanks.
Congratulations again. Thanks. Something we all can agree upon.
Yes. Yes. Ryan?
Was she counted in the census?
I don't think she made it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. One is the farmers market has started again, so I've been attending. Maurice and staff and all have done a great job. So if you have an opportunity to come out to the farmers market, definitely stop by on Wednesdays. It's been great seeing folks come out there. They do have signage up, so if you are attending, you should definitely follow the respective protocols and make plans to do so. On April 30th, from 9 a.m. until noon, Supervisor Catherine Barger is having an event to One and All Church. They're going to go ahead and be doing food distribution there. So anyone that would like to get involved there, you can go ahead and stop by, or if you're in need of assistance, go ahead and stop by there. And lastly, I just wanted to congrats Eric again to your new addition to your family, and I hope everybody has a great week ahead.
John?
I have nothing further, Mayor.
I'm stunned. Thank you. And I have nothing further. So if I can get a motion, we'll adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All in favor? Thank you.